5 matches from your career that people should see if they want to get like a sample of the whole Goldberg experience?
Oh God. Oh God. I'd have to say, quite obviously, my first one against Hugh Morris. That was definitely the beginning. Hugh Morris, the U.S. Championship, Colorado Springs against Raven and the Flock, Sting, and Goldberg for the first time, which was an absolute dream of mine. And there's no way I can glaze over Dallas Page and I. I learned a hell of a lot in that match, and it was probably 5 times as long as any match I'd ever gone prior to that one. And then let's just say Brock.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say Brock at Mania, the first time we wrestled.
Wow,
Because,
really?
yeah, because everybody's got to see that. It was a cluster. I mean, it truly was a cluster. But the match wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. But you could have put on a 10-star match and they still would have booed us out of the building.
Well, yeah, you know what? I kind of like that you lean into that because I think, I was at Money in the Bank with a colleague of mine who doesn't watch a lot of WWE. And what I was explaining is part of why the fan base can get so feverish is because there's these blurred lines between the performance in the ring, what's really happening, the competition in the ring kind of reflecting the work people are putting in behind the scenes and it being rewarded. So I think it's such a fascinating thing to dive into.
Yeah.
One thing that we don't talk a lot about, but we talk about WCW, we talk about WWE, but you did have about a year in between there where you had All Japan Pro Wrestling. I was just watching a video today. You went to Jackhammer, Satoshi Kojima, turned it into kind of like a alligator roll, swinging neck breaker kind of situation. What are your memories from that stage of your career?
Nothing but happiness. I mean, true.
Really?
Yeah, when I started the formation of the character Goldberg, I'm an old school guy. I'm a football guy, so I watch a lot of film. I did a lot of due diligence. Um, I came to the realization that the guys who were the guys, the guys who were the badasses, are the ones that could transfer over to Japan.
Mm.
It was a completely different style of wrestling. It was more shoot, it was more MMA, it was more pancrase, it was more reality, and those guys didn't bitch if you hit them. They loved it, and it was more of an initiation. It was just a completely different deal. And the fans are like sitting on their hands the whole time. You don't hear anything. You could hear a pin drop, but it doesn't mean they don't enjoy what they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
It's out of respect. So it was a completely different culture. It was a place that I'd wanted to go for a very long period of time. I played in the Japan Bowl in football, my 1980, whatever the heck it was. But that was the only time I'd been there, and I wanted to go back. And like I said, Hogan, and the big badasses are the guys that were able to translate over to the Japanese audience. And it was an absolute honor and a privilege to be over there and perform.
That's amazing. I know your leg was wrapped up, and I think you had suffered an injury before going to AGPW in some sort of, I think it was like a Grand Prix racing kind of situation. What was the decision behind that sort of alligator roll? Was it the injury, or was it you just trying to kind of introduce something new into your repertoire?
Oh, it was new. It was like the Twister, man. It was something different. It was something completely different. I hadn't done it in WWE. I don't think I ever did it in WWE. I did it in WCW a number of times, but it was another shoot move,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, well, an alligator roll into an anaconda choke, personal favorite. But again, we got to have the MMA talk another time, unfortunately.
All good.
I put in some fan questions as I always do, and you know how the internet can be. Some people, the fandom just oozes out. Others, a little too much sting on their questions, no pun intended. But you said you're open to talking about whatever, and I think if you sift through some of those questions, there's actually some like interesting stuff to get in. The first one I want to kind of tackle here is obviously fans weren't super pleased with how the streak ended for you. But if we kind of look back on it, hindsight being what it is, do you have any ideas for how you would have liked the streak to end?
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of common knowledge at this point, but I wanted a different type of taser. I wanted it to be more realistic. I actually wanted the one that they shoot in you and they light you up with.
Yeah, yeah. So you still want the taser though? That stays.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was, you had to come with something out of the ordinary to take a dude like me down, and I think that would have been pretty cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, And like I said, I'm not a booker by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have the imagination to do it, but I don't know, run me over with a truck or something.
I got okay. What is it? I know I saw the authenticity. Maybe it's your MMA background. I know you know used to own a gym and work with guys like Kevin Randleman, Randy Couture. But it's like Goldberg has no. In fact, I'd argue sometimes you seem to lean into pain, whether it's the glass in the window or getting shot with tasers. Like, what is it in you that drives you to sort of make these performances as authentic as you do?
It's me as a human being. It's just me. I'm a meathead, man, and I like to go above and beyond, and I like to headbutt doors. I have to get into that special place, and I can't do it unless I do certain things. And there are certain people that you look to go above and beyond when it comes to physicality and when it comes to effort. And I'd like to think that throughout the years, I'm one of those guys.
The method acting, we call it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on my end, I end up injuring myself more than anything else. But it is what it is.
I mean, it's been a fantastic career, so clearly it's been a net positive.
Hey, that segment on WCW when I hit the limousine was the highest rated segment on cable television at the time.
There we go. The streak, 173. I've read that, and personally, I feel like the story is more important than the statistics. But I've read that number may be a little inflated. Is there any truth? And if so, was there a creative decision and kind of wanting to make that number as big as possible? Like, why that direction?
No, I mean, literally, I don't know at what point they truly grabbed a hold of the streak and had like a finality to it. But I think it was something that they fed off the fans week after week. And I think they gave the fans what they wanted. As far as inflation is concerned, I think I wrestled Jerry Flynn like 5 or 6 times during that streak. But I can't tell you as to whether it was truly inflated or not. It probably was, but it's the world of wrestling.
Again, and the Miz had a very poignant statement. It's like, it didn't matter. One week it said 15, the next week it said 5. That's not what you were there for. You were there to see Goldberg crush a fool.
I just showed up and did what they told me to do.
100%. Reflecting on, I know you and Chris Jericho did get to work together in WWE a number of times. Looking back, and Chris Jericho has been such a great guy in terms of reinventing yourself. You yourself have had these wonderful comebacks. Any desire in hindsight to kind of go back and put something kind of cool together? Because you guys are good at what you do.
I'd love to, man. I would. Chris and I have had a fairly rocky relationship throughout the years, but we're kind of the same guy a little bit, and I think that's why we butted heads in the beginning. One of the reasons. And hey, man, I love Chris to death. I do. I'm actually doing his podcast here in a couple of weeks.
I love to hear that.
Yeah. So hey, man, life's too short, dude. Grudges or something that it means that he wins or something like. I don't know what the saying is, but life's too short.
Yeah, I'm always.
Dude. He's always come to bat for me, which was truly heart wrenching for me. I mean, it was to know that we've been through what we went through, and this dude would go to bat for me. I mean, that just shows what good freaking dude he is.
Oh, it's gonna be a damn good podcast episode too, and
I can't wait. I really can't. I'm very much looking forward to it.
The dirt sheety thing I do want to ask you. You had the match against The Fiend. I know a lot of people were sort of upset. Actually, they were upset prior to that. They were upset over the Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins, but it looked like Bray was set for something so big, and it kind of came crashing down. Is there any truth, because I would like you to be able to defend yourself, that Bray was supposed to win that match, and then you sort of objected and suggested that you should win the match?
Let's put it this way, okay? And I've never said anything that wasn't true in the wrestling business. When I'm a talent and I do what the boss tells me to do. I flew to Saudi Arabia knowing that I was going to lose. Then somehow it changed and the finish was different. And it surely wasn't me, because it's an extremely selfish move, number one, to do. Number two, then truly it wouldn't be about the business, it'd be about myself. And number three, who the hell am I as a part-time guy to come in and demand anything? Truly, I mean, I'm not. Vince gave me opportunities that, maybe I didn't deserve in the past. And I owe that man just about everything. So why in God's name first and foremost, I've never said no to putting anybody over. Maybe back at WCW, I didn't agree with putting Jericho over or something like that. If I can remember correctly, because I didn't think that it was time for the character to be involved in any comedy, but not in a million years situation in Saudi would I have done that. No way in hell. And I'd love to get on the phone with Bray and tell him face to face. I'd love to see him face to face and make sure that there's not 1% of his being that believes that I changed that match.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to hear that. I like to stay away from that stuff for the most part, but I do think it's important, if possible, to give people the chance to sort of defend themselves. You don't want to give too much weight to it, though. You know.
Well, that's the first time I've actually been able to defend myself in that situation.
Well, good. Thank you. Thank you for answering it, and I appreciate that your willingness and allowing me to sort of be a part of that. Last thing before we move on to some fun stuff, because I do like to kind of end this, getting to know you as a person a little bit better. Obviously, people talk a lot about the Brett match. I'm not too interested in rehashing that or what's come since, but you mentioned, I think, on Inside the Ropes during that live show, how much you idolized Brett. What was your relationship like with Bret Hart before that match?
I was a sponge, and he taught me, I learned through osmosis from Bret. To have a talent like that down at WCW at the time, when I felt as though everyone was trying to expose me and push me in the wrong direction, I saw in him an ally. And for to what happened to have happened, I'll be remorseful to the end of my days. And for anybody that thinks that was intentional, that's extremely foolish, and I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked. You kind of brought it up with Chris Jericho, but hopefully with time, more healing, maybe one day you guys can sit down and do a podcast together. And
you never know.
You never know. And in this industry especially, you really, truly never know. I mean, hey, man, Vince and Brad got over it, so.
Hey, you never know. Here, let me tell you something about Goldberg the human, okay? This just happened in the last month. Very long story short, and you can go on my Instagram on Goldberg95 and check this picture out. But the latest post, I posted a picture of a bird sitting on top of my head. And we are in the middle of Texas summer baseball. My son's 16. We're playing baseball all over the state. We go to Franklin, Texas. We do a tournament. They win the tournament. I walk from the stands to the dugout. There's a baby bird on the ground. And I had to tell my wife, we had to save this thing. So not only did we drive to Franklin and back with the kangaroo in the front seat, but we had a baby bird right next to the kangaroo on the way home. We nursed the baby bird back to health. We've taken care of him for the last 3 weeks. 2 days ago, we let him go. It was one of the most heart-wrenching things in my entire life, believe it or not. And today, when I come out to do my interview, I walk outside and he flies in and lands on my head.
That's a good omen. I love the sound of that, man.
I mean, so that's a story that you'd never think that you would hear from Goldberg. But man, it's freaking awesome.
Those are my favorite kind of stories. I mean, how could I even ask you? But thank you for bringing it up, because that's
going to
stick out. Okay, I know we're short on time, so I want to end on a little rapid fire here. Feel free to keep your answers short. No need to elaborate. Just get to know you a little better. Ready to go?
Sure.
All right. You can only do one sequel, but you got to do one of them. Santa Slay 2 or Looney Tunes Back in Action 2?
Santa Slay 2, 100%.
Okay. Are you more likely to pick up your mom's skills as a classical violinist or award-winning hybrid orchid grower?
I would say a award-winning hybrid orchid grower.
Okay. What is your most memorable story as a bouncer?
Oh, Jesus. The first night I was there as a bouncer, and I was 15 years old. I lied to my boss. And actually, there are two. The boss and a bunch of other of the bouncers ripped a guy's scalp off his head, literally throwing him out. Or the night that he found out that I was underage because of the all-city football team that came out in the local paper, and he brought me into his office.
Amazing. Two last ones very quickly. I don't know how much your pulse is on the finger, but which active professional wrestler right now is the next Goldberg?
Braun Breaker.
Okay. Finally, Bill Goldberg's next match or his son's debut? Who's next? Which one's happening first?
Oh, I would say Goldberg's next match.
Amazing. Love
Because
it. Can't wait.
he's got football season coming up.
Certainly. Well, I can't wait for the day. Maybe a tag team match would be great to have. So
You
until
never
then,
know.
Bill, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could do this for so much longer. One day, hopefully, we will.